Everyone. I have a few really quick things I want to cover. Some thoughts around teaching specifically. Um, a little bit of this is math, so a little bit of teacher math for you. Some of this is in the book, some of this isn't. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was during curriculum development and design, it can be tempting to go overboard and spend a lot of time and effort developing just the right curriculum. If you're like me and like some of my friends and mentors and teachers who are really into trying to become better teachers, we have generations and generations of notes and versions of curriculum that we've messed with, and it can be very difficult for students once you put a curriculum in place for their advancement, for their testing, to then change that on them. So these are things that you have to consider. So one of the things I want to point out is something about permutations. Now, I'm not amazing at math. I can do some math. It was never my strongest point, but permutations are fairly simple. They're simply an effect of multiplication across the factors that you're paying attention to. So you may not be able to read these, but I'll call these out to you. So let's say we're teaching blocking techniques, and we're teaching blocks. Some come from the outside of our body box towards the inside. Some come from the inside of our body box towards the outside. So there's two directions of our arm movements for bridging. Let's say we do those on 3 levels: high, middle, and low. Then there's 3 levels. So the 2 options in and out times the 3 levels gives you 6 things to have to practice and train. Not that much, right? So now let's say we apply those on the attacker either on the inside gate or on the outside gate. Those are 2 factors for that element. So then for everything we did before, we need to practice it 2 ways. That gives us 12 lessons or things we have to train. So now let's say we practice either on the rear leg or on the lead leg, that arm motion. That's another factor, and it has 2 elements. So we multiply that 2 times 12, we have 24. Let's say we have 3 different kinds of stepping methods, one which is very simple, one which is sliding, one which is step, slide, and pivot, for example. That's 3 elements of stepping times the 24 prior lessons. Now we have 72 lessons to give to the student. And let's say we have 9 principles we want to apply to that technique. We now have 9 principles times 72. That gives us 648 lessons. Far, far too many. So I'm not suggesting one particular answer for this, except to say that you should pay attention to what is critically important to you. And then, as we discussed earlier about isolated, combined, and then free-form training methodologies, give the students the reminders during the free-form training methodologies to cover some of these that you didn't actually lay out in specific lessons. So it's permutations, how to calculate them, how to see that they get out of control really quickly, and just my generalized advice for how to deal with that. The second thing is, and this is in the book, the reminder that principles can be applied in nearly any order. There are some efficiencies gained in doing things certain ways, but I would just say, as a reminder to get started, don't be afraid of how you implement or when or where you implement the principles. Rather, get started with that process, because the reality is, through the associative property of addition and multiplication, it doesn't really matter the order in which you perform those operations. If you add 2 and 3 first and then add 5, or if you add 3 and 5 first and then you add 2, the outcome is the same. And remember, we discussed how we define advanced, and it's by the addition of layers of principles on the same activity. So the more you can bring to bear at the same time, add them up, the better your chances are. The last thing I wanted to mention was a teaching methodology called test first. In this approach, in test first approach, you essentially give the student, as we discussed in the backwards planning discussion, there was the goal, the test methodology, and then the material that the student trained in a curriculum. So the idea being one methodology which can advance your students more quickly if you have small groups and can provide individualized training is to provide the test first, see how and where they fail, and then go back and tailor the actual lesson and curriculum methodology for that student or for that group of students. So it's another thing for you to consider and potentially try, and it's essentially test first. Give them the test, see how and where they fail if they do, and if they don't fail, you advance them. It's kind of like CLEPing a class in college. If they do fail, they may fail in ways that you weren't expecting, or it might provide you some additional insight on how to tailor your message. Remember, teaching is a specialized form of communication. It's the teacher's job to figure out if the message lands. And so by presenting the test and seeing how they fail, you can then tailor your communication methodology for that student. Anyhow, I hope these tips give you some things to think about in your own teaching. Let me know what the next topic you're looking for would be. Take care.